Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Confronting Our Thoughts. We are back to a way more consistent schedule, which feels good. So, with that being said, we're just going to get into the episode right away. So this has been on my mind a lot recently, and it's this relationship that we have with our internal feelings. And what I mean by that is I can speak only for myself, but I would like to imagine that everyone feels the same way in or some type of the same way in this aspect is that when we aren't feeling internally our best, whatever that might look like for each and every one of us, it's very easy to get into a mindset that this feeling is it feels like it's never going to go away, right? It just you feel like you're just kind of lack of better terms in the trenches, and this could be for whatever reason, right? In my mind, I like to try to correlate with something, whether it's a crappy night's sleep or um, maybe just stress, having a good relationship with my stress in my life. And then on the flip side of that, when we're feeling good, right, when we're feeling, in flow of whatever we're doing, whether that's our relationship or no, whether that's a conversation, whether that's with work, or with even like exercising, we've all had great workouts and bad workouts. But in the terms of good feelings, when we have those good feelings, our relationship is, for the most part, oh, this isn't going to last forever. So maybe try to like make the most out of this situation, of this feeling. Um, and so, but at the end of the day, the reality is that feelings come and go, whether they're the best feeling in the world or the worst feeling in the world, they all come and go. So I want to put this question out to you guys, but Zach, I would like to hear Zach's answer first, and we get into Luke's. When we're feeling a bad feeling, I know that's a very simple way to put it, but I think we all know what that feels like, whether, and sometimes it's for we don't really even know the reason, right? Like sometimes just like, man, I'm just not myself today. I don't feel like whether I just don't feel like talking to anyone, or I don't feel like being productive at all, maybe all of the above. So Zach, my question to you is, when you're going through a time of your life, whether it's 5 minutes or a whole day of you just not feeling yourself, what is your relationship with that? And obviously it's hindsight's 2020, but let's just try to maybe get into, be in your shoes when you're feeling those feelings. And what are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself anything? And if so, what is that conversation you're having with yourself when you're not feeling your best?
I think for me, it's tough times don't last. That's usually what I'm thinking to myself internally because for me, I think when I am not feeling my best, a lot of the times it's from my internal like dialogue with myself. So it might just be a maybe I'm not feeling my best because I'm tired and my body is run down, and then my inside or like my internal voice will kind of add to that by making it worse by having
Mm.
bad negative thoughts or like complaining about it and being lazy and like not doing something about it. That's what I'm thinking about when it's like something physical. But I I think when it's something mental and maybe you're going through something that maybe you're just not in the right headspace, you're not feeling yourself also. As much as you can be weighed down by the negative thoughts and not feeling yourself, I think also on the other hand, the positive thoughts and what you can do to get out of that is in your control. So that's why I think of like tough times don't last, or just trying to go and do something that get my mind off of it that I will enjoy doing. Because I find for myself when I don't feel my best, I would probably just like to lay around and not do anything, but it's kind of forcing myself to go and do something because it's pretty easy to just sit around and whether you scroll on your phone or watch TV, whatever you do in your spare time. But I think I think it's important to realize that there are ups and downs in life, and when the tough times are there, it feels like it all comes at once for some reason. And you alluded to it before we started. It feels like the tough times, like it's going to be like this forever. And then when we have good times, we don't even really recognize it. So uh, it starts with the mindset, I guess, and just what your internal dialogue is. And check in yourself. But that's easier said than done because everyone is different. So what works for someone might not work for another.
Yeah. So when just a question about your internal dialogue, what specifically are you telling yourself? Or is it as simple as um like this isn't going to last forever, and like just kind of get through it, you know what I mean? Like is there something specifically, do you turn to any type of activity specifically to get yourself out of that headspace, not really out of it, but just to cope with that headspace, negative headspace?
I think for me it's doing something that I don't normally do because I feel like I alluded to this in the prior podcast that I feel like my self-care wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I just wasn't where I wanted to be right now in my spare time and my extracurricular activities. I just wasn't doing things that I feel like really benefited me. So the other day I actually wasn't feeling like my best and I just felt like kind of out of it, so to speak. So what I did was kind of just think it was like Thursday night. I think I just kind of sat down and watched Netflix uh, by myself. And the thing about that is, I haven't watched Netflix in a while. I haven't done that specifically in a while because I feel like I've just been so set on my schedule and the routine I've been in that I have forgotten to like slow down and take a step back. And I think that was a time when I was feeling the consequences of doing that 100% because I think I was just tired and just run down, and my body and my mind were just kind of like speaking to me. And I think that was my chance to listen to my body and my mind by just staying in for the night. Like I didn't do any schoolwork or look at anything that would cause me to like have to use my mind too much. So I was just kind of relaxing.
Yeah. Um, and then Luke, I'm gonna ask you the same thing. So I'm instead of just repeating the same question, maybe just piggyback off what Zach said in that mindset, or just something that you like to do. Like I said, I don't want to give the aspect that you need to leave that feeling, right? Because usually that makes the feelings worse. Um,
No, I mean the biggest thing that I've just come to realize is that this is just part of life. Like we're
mm,
gonna have these times, and the greatest highs is gonna come with some pretty sad lows or wherever you're gonna be. But just knowing that you're just gonna be climbing the mountain, and that's really what it is you have to climb that mountain, even as dark or where you might not want to be right now. It's just a matter of getting through it. But I just kind of, yeah, I tell myself that, and I alluded it to how Zach said uh, in previous podcasts that this too shall pass. Like Tom Hanks, I've said that a couple times on here, and it's true, man. It does help. It gets me through whatever struggles I'm going through. But yeah, like today was a perfect example. Like I always have the Sunday scaries or whatever. So I got up this morning, just went for just a walk, went to the gym, went an incline walk, and just got a good stretch in, just to feel better a little bit about today, and just knowing I actually did something productive. And like I know, like I got a whole bunch of stuff I got to do around here, but just getting those little things done throughout the day just really does help you throughout that day when you're in that like little time period. But just in like life in general, like when you have those negative feelings, like it's obviously life telling you something, that there's more to whatever it is. Like it might not be like a major shift in your life, but maybe just tweak something in like your daily routine. Like if there's obviously something that you're stressing about, just make like a little change with something throughout the day that just makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. And that's honestly really helped me too. But yeah.
yeah,
I think
great.
for us, I think for us as men, what we're talking about on this podcast is like confronting our thoughts and it being aware of your feelings and not letting them like overtake you and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to when you're not feeling your best, that those things are going to happen, like Luke said. And I think there's a big difference between acknowledging those feelings and those thoughts and like sitting in them. And sitting in them, I mean like letting them take over and affecting your relationships or your conversations you're having with people. Because if you're like pissed off and you like sulk in that, then someone says something to you like the wrong way, you could snap on them, and that's just not good for anyone either. So I think for this conversation, if we're acknowledging them, that's the first step, and then always we get to choose how to respond and how our attitude is going to reflect that. So
And that's one of the controllables. Like we always talk about control the controllables, and you can always control your attitude through that. And a big thing with that too, I feel like a lot of the times, like especially with me, when I get like anxious, that's when I'm more towards when I'm like in those negative like thoughts or whatever. But I think it's a big thing of I'm just really just focused on the future. I'm like, oh, I'm really anxious about this, like an exam or just life in general. Like I got all these things to do, and I'm just not where I want to be yet. But like you're supposed to be where you are right now. But at the same time, you not necessarily it's gonna be like right time, right place for everything, but you do have to take action to get where you want to be. So uh but like back to the anxious thing, when you're in those time periods, it's just more like living in the present is the biggest thing. Is that's you living, like you're living in that uh I forget what I was going with that, but that that's just like sorry. But
No, no. Yeah, I
yeah.
think, like just because usually when we say the phrase like I feel alive, that's usually directly correlated with a good feeling, whether that's
Mhm.
like I like
Yes.
I feel most alive outdoors, whether I'm hiking or on the water or something. That's my quote of like feeling alive. But with that, on days that, like Luke was saying, you're maybe anxious about something in the future, that's still being alive, right? Like
Hmm.
that's just as being alive as feeling quote good in lack of better terms.
Hmm.
So but like what Zach was saying, I just wrote while he was talking, just be aware of your feelings is the first step. um and like how do you do that? Just listen to yourself, right? Like try to minimize the distractions so you actually hear and feel what you're feeling. There's so many, whether it's a good or a bad thing, we always try to go another way. Usually when it's a bad feeling, we'll try to just kind of turn down another street and then another street, just try to get away from this feeling. But the reality is that that feeling is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So first step, be aware, and then, or kind of the same thing as acknowledging it, and then like letting it be, like let the feeling be. That doesn't mean, or yeah, just let that feeling be, whatever that may look like. Whether that's I feel the most when if I have a bad feeling and I go for a walk. That's like I feel the feeling, but it I kind of let it go in that sense. Being outside, I think has a factor. Movement has a factor of like kind of letting that energy go. What doesn't help is trying to distract my mind. And like I talked about, whether it's like, watching a podcast, or yeah, usually it doesn't, or like trying to get to work. That usually doesn't help it. I need to actually like face the feeling and then let it go that way. Sitting in peace, that's the hardest one, is that kind of just meditating on it, just being completely silent. That if you're there with that, I think that's kind of maybe the next step. Like maybe, feeling it, letting it go, maybe do something active, moving your body to let it go. And then, and once you kind of master that, I feel like the next step is actually being able to do nothing, sit with the feeling, and then like let it go that way too. But that's going to be harder for most people. So just something when
I have,
yeah,
oh
go
no,
on.
go ahead. Go ahead. I just have something to add whenever you can go first.
Yeah, so I just want to get a little bit of what I kind of tell myself in those feelings that don't feel the best. And a lot of times just telling myself that my future self is going to thank me for getting through this. Not just getting through it, but getting through it in a way that's not going to negatively impact other people around me. Most importantly, the people that I truly care about. That's like the worst feeling. Um, yeah, because the worst feeling, a feeling that's worse than feeling bad, is when your bad feelings make other people that you care about also feel bad. That's the worst, right? So like in my mind, I'm like, okay, let me just take this and not like put a front on, but just like hide it a little bit. That doesn't mean not talk about it or not express those feelings, but letting that change my conversation or change my energy towards my daily life in a negative way, that's what makes my feelings worse. So that's one reason I try to steer, or one way I steer away. And then secondly is, like I just said, I know it doesn't make me feel good. Scrolling through social media and when I'm in the trenches doesn't make me feel better. So like that's another key too. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important to know what makes those feelings kind of get heightened in a bad way, and then obviously steer away from those as much as possible, and then try your absolute best to not let that impact other people in a negative way. Like I said, it doesn't mean not talking about it, but when you're letting it impact your, just being like, just being a not a good person to be around because of those internal feelings, that's when it's, it kind of, it also makes it worse. And then yeah, and I think when we talk about like the highs and the lows, we usually, or usually connotated with like this extreme high and this extreme low. But the reality is the vast majority of your life is going to go like little highs and little lows and little highs and little lows. Yeah, and then you're going to have a day or a weekend or a month even where it's like super high, and then also the same way down. But the reality of life is that it's just ebbs and flow, just like your day-to-day stuff. Um, Being aware of it, and then developing good habits in a relationship with those feelings. So Zach, I'll let you go.
Yeah, your one reason just thought I just thought of the word like bracketing. So it's just uh if you're going through something and on the outside, like surface level, if you're able to bracket it well, then someone won't be able to tell that you're whatever pissed off or sad or something like that, because you were talking about not having that bad feeling make other people feel bad when you come into contact with them. So I know of some people in particular that they'd be going through something, but you would not be able to tell because their
Mm-hmm.
ability to bracket those feelings and emotions and not let them go outward into the space they're in is just, they're good at doing that. And that doesn't mean that they're ignoring their feelings or their thoughts. It's just like they have responsibilities that they're tending to right now. And maybe it's not the best time to be dwelling and sitting with those thoughts at that moment. Um, and then another thing is, I had a conversation with someone last week who is working on herself, and it made me think about when you said the hardest one is sitting in silence and like peace and sitting with the feeling and like having a conversation with yourself. And that's when it's like the really hard conversations are when you learn the most about yourself, and you're probably going to learn some things that you don't like and you don't want to accept the answers to. And this particular person is going through a lot right now, and she is coming to grips with the fact that working on yourself is selfish, yes, and you have to be like that and do that to get to where you need to be. And one of the things is just, she said, just having those conversations with herself, she found some things out that she didn't enjoy, but she knows it's necessary for her growth and to continue on the path that she is on right now and wants to be on. So that can be the same said for us, like having those conversations with yourself and asking yourself, like, why am I feeling like this? Like, what is this feeling? Or, you know, where's this coming from? And then how can I respond, or how can I go forward and address this issue so it doesn't keep happening? And also doesn't happen frequently enough where it's going to affect your other relationships and things like that, because then that can start down a negative spiral really quickly.
100%.
As much as we
I
talk about, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, 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 you're good. You're good.
No, like just as much as we talk about like our goals and just trying to get to like setting those steps, and it's good to do that as well, to reflect on why you're feeling certain ways, like when you're down, like identifying those reasons, uh and like that's just a major step in to improving yourself, to just not necessarily not feel that way again, but like at least okay, I don't want to do this because it makes me feel X way. So I mean, that's just all I had to add on to that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um,
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I would just wanted to get into, and this all comes from just like Zach was saying, like learning about yourself, you know, yeah, and but also like kind of educating yourself of internal feelings, and we've never been able to do that more than this time of our lives, or I guess this time of honestly like humanity, um, due to the use of social media and like hearing very very educated people, talk about their field of expertise, and then the free education through social media for the most part.
Mhm.
And so with that, just like a quick, not like science lesson, but what we do know is that when we do a ton of things at once that release a ton of dopamine, usually that's followed with a pretty low level of dopamine, and that's directly correlated with feeling just not good, in lack of a better terms. So what does that look like? Um, I mean, like alcohol, alcohol is a dopamine releasing substance. Social interactions are dopamine releasing substance. Or I'm sorry, a dopamine releasing action. Um, and so with that, those two combined, right? That's like, which everyone usually always correlates with, for obviously, like in my mind, like healthy consumers of alcohol usually are consuming alcohol with other people that they enjoy being around. And so, but also with that is usually a poor night's sleep. So you have three things there that, so for example, on a Friday night, you go out get some drinks with some people that you really enjoy. And also you're probably not going to get the best sleep. And I'm not saying this in a negative connotation. It's just that's the reality of a lot of people's like weekends. Um, so those are like two, like I said, super dopamine releasing actions. And also with a poor night's sleep. So just not going to feel your best the next morning. But also the night before, like we just said, we just released a ton of dopamine. That's probably you're gonna feel the impacts of that in a negative way the next morning. And like that, this isn't like the biggest deal. It's just like when you become more aware of how our brain systems work. This is obviously very surface level foundational stuff that like I'm obviously not an expert in. I just kind of like to listen to educated people who talk about this. Um, that's just a way for us to be aware of like, okay, Saturday morning, I might not feel the best. You know what I mean? So let me be aware of my feelings. Okay, we knew this was coming. Now let me develop a good habit with that. Let me not stay in bed and order DoorDash until 1 or 2 p.m. because I don't feel good. Let me make sure every Saturday morning, no matter how much sleep I got, let me go try to go outside and go for a walk. Like Luke, every time you come on this podcast, you're like, "Yeah, I went for a walk this morning." Maybe I drank a little bit last night, but I woke up and got for a walk, and I feel way better than if I would have sat on my bed and scrolled through social media and just ordered delivery. It's like these little things, man, that like I said, everyone, I'm not saying don't go out with friends. That's like the idea. Um, but just being aware that that might be followed by a morning of not feeling the best. But there's a way to cope with that, a healthy way to cope with that. So obviously an unhealthy way to cope with that. So I think that's just really, really important and simple to understand. Um, before we move on to Luke, do you want to talk about your that Joe Rogan podcast, or do you want to come back to that another episode?
Yeah, we can come back to that. That was, I
Okay.
mean, yeah, honestly, we can just get into it right now. It's not that big of a
Okay.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Let's do.
just
I'll
didn't
let
really
you.
remember. No, he just kind of stated like life's just about being healthy. And I just kind of forget where he went with it, but I do remember a little bit. It was just like, it's not all about just like physical health. So it's just about your mental health too, and your health with your relationships and stuff like that. And I mean, it really is an important thing, and it just helps you get a little bit ahead of the curve, just like how we're doing right now. I mean, like how we were just talking about identifying problems, and like when we release like the dopamine, or like we're at like a high frequency and then we're on a low frequency. But if we're able to get ahead of that curve, that honestly makes me feel a little bit more healthy because I'm identifying why is this happening? I know this is coming, and how can I shift my daily activities to make me feel just a little bit better. But yeah, at the end of the day, just life really is just about being healthy, and with just the daily activities of okay, I got to do this, I got to get all these things done, but at the same time you're thinking about longevity, but at the same time you want to be living in the present. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I just forget what he said, but like that's just
no,
kind of like
no.
my takeaway from it is just that this really is just how life is supposed to be. It's just there's no there's no right answer. There's no going left or right. It doesn't matter where you go. It's just how can you overcome like just certain things throughout your life.
Yeah, Chris Williamson had a great topic I wrote down in same family as this conversation. He said the difference between hidden versus observable metrics in the relationship or in aspects of someone's life. So, for example, your observable metrics are people that other people can observe of you and that you can observe usually in the form of numbers or material things. Obviously, like your career is an observable metric. You can observe how well or how bad your career is going, and other people can do that too, based off of your title. Your like house is an observable metric. You can literally look up how much your house is worth. Your car, people always know off the street that's a nice car, that's not a nice car. All these things are observable metrics that people do go after. They do correlate those with a good sense of feeling. And then, so those are those observable metrics. And then he talked about hidden metrics. And what Luke was talking about, a hidden metric is the feeling of being satisfied, the feeling of joy, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of love. You can't measure these things. You can't say, oh, I have 7 out of 10 love today. You know what I mean? But the reality, the things that I just listed that are observable versus things that I just listed that are hidden, the hidden ones are what last a lifetime. And that's what actually feels good. And we're all coming from a place of not having a ton of observable metrics. Obviously, we're all in our young 20s, but listening to people who do have a ton of observable metrics, ton of money, quote unquote, great career in the aspects of other careers, maybe a ton of followers, right? Like all these things that we think of, like that's going to directly correlate to these hidden metrics, are telling us that that's not the case, that these hidden metrics come and go no matter how much of these observable metrics you have. And so to truly focus on these hidden metrics as much as possible with this, like, I kind of think of it like, if I'm focusing on these hidden metrics, these important metrics that these people who are older than me are telling me that are important, these observable metrics tend to kind of fall along with that. You know what I mean? Instead of it being like this relationship where this goes down, if I'm working my ass off, I'm not taking time out for my friends, I'm not taking time out for my health, but look at my observable metrics, right? Look at my GPA, look at how much money I have, look at my stocks, all these things. But this is going up, but this isn't. But if I focus on this will go up, and this actually tends to follow it, rather than this up and down. We think of like, well, if I take time out for my relationship, or if I take time out of my weekend to talk to my friends who are across the country, then my observable metrics, right? I won't have time to do homework or whatever. I won't have time to whatever the observable metric might be, that this is going to go down. And it's simply not the case. It's not the case. Like the universe rewards you for working on yourself and chasing the feelings of joy and accepting these feelings. And then the observable metrics will follow.
No, 100%. It moves the same way. Well, obviously, like the material things, and that's what they talk about. They talk like the material things do not fulfill you long term. Like they might for a moment, and like say like having that fast car or whatever. Like in the moment, it's gonna be awesome to have that, but like at the end of the day, like when looking back on life, like what has that really given you? Like what sort of fulfillment later in life have like did you actually feel? But yeah, like there's
Yeah.
some like law of like nature law of power or whatever, but it's like the more you learn, the money comes to you or whatever. But I'm not saying like let me learn so I can get all this money. I'm just saying it correlates with what you were saying, as if I'm trying to fulfill like these feelings of love, these feelings with my friends, these relationships. You're how did you put it? The
The observable
observable
metrics. Yeah. Those
yes, yeah.
the
It
things that other people could see, like objectively
yes,
see. Also,
yes.
you can objectively see your bank account statement, all those things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as like your feelings, like the hidden metrics, as that moves up, your observable
Observable
metrics
metrics
also move with
will
it.
follow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Correct.
And it seems to be, with my experience, with not nearly as much effort. Not that I'm not putting
Yes.
time into these things, but if I
Mhm.
put in time for both, that innately you're going to think, well, one has to suffer, right? But it's like actually
Mhm.
not the case, because you're actually able to feel good when you're working on these observable metrics, because you're taking care of your hidden metrics, it like, rather than going all balls to the wall on one side. Anyway, so that was
Because
just like,
you're just dumping all your energy that you have into that one side of the observable metrics, and that you
and
don't have
that's
anything left for yourself.
and the reward of that isn't lasting, right?
No.
And like, so the reward of putting a ton of money into, sorry, I just keep going, or sorry, a ton of energy into, keep going, like money. But this also could just be like
Yeah.
followers and all these things, which um that isn't followed with the feeling that putting time and effort and energy into these hidden metrics, the feeling after that. So yeah, but people
Yeah,
just
it
think you
makes me
can't
think.
have both, but you
Yeah,
can.
it makes me think about the the classic, all the people that are famous and specifically musicians or you know actors or something like that. On that observable side, they have all these cars and they're famous and they have all these followers. They probably have a lot of money and all those things, but on the inside, they're really unhappy. They're not fulfilled because they're not feeling the joy. They're not feeling passion. They're not in healthy relationships. They're probably surrounded by people who are only there because they have a lot of money and they're like fake relationships. So they're not truly, truly happy and they're not focusing on those hidden metrics because they have all these things on the outside. So why would I need to have a good relationship with my family or stay in contact with my friends or treat my girlfriend with a little bit of respect because I can just have a new girl tonight or something like that. So they take those things for granted and then they actually are truly unhappy and not fulfilled in their life and then
Yeah.
probably turn to drugs and substances and uh, maladaptive behaviors that just take them down a spiral.
And we have never been in a time of the memory of humans where we've been able to be as transparent with those people. I'm sorry, or those people that Zach just listed haven't nearly been able to be as transparent as they are in this day and age through the use of social media. So it's such a blessing to be able to truly hear from these people due to these platforms that everyone has access to, of like, no, I'm telling you, I am this. I have all these observable metrics, or I've had them, or at one time, or maybe I do have them currently, and I'm telling you that they don't provide the joy and happiness that you think. Back, not back when our parents were growing up, they never really had someone. They never were able to listen to those people, right? Because they were just on the screen, or they were on the news doing some fake interview with a script, or they were on the television acting, like that was literally their job, was acting, whether a movie star or whatever, or the athletes where they're just getting interviewed for 2 minutes after a game or on the field doing like. And so social media, I always talk about, definitely has its cons, but man, one of the benefits is the transparency between these people who have a ton of money and a ton of observable metrics, to be transparent and be like, nope, I still go through downs, or I still wish I put more time in my relationship. Because the reality is this: the majority of people who have a ton of observable metrics usually came with the cost of their hidden metrics, whether that's their family, their health. And so with those people, and they say is that, like, you guys, I get what I'm trying to say, but like, they say to make sure you're always just taking care of your hidden metrics no matter what, because this doesn't fulfill you 100%. So
Yeah, I
um
agree, and that's one of the biggest things, like for social media. Like I'm so grateful for with like the podcast or whatever, is these people having these, and they're they're trying to tell you a message that when it's good to have these things, but at the same time, does it fulfill you? And message is loud and clear for me. I'm not saying go chase that your goals, go chase the money you want or whatever, but at the same time, just make sure you're taking care of yourself, your relationships with people, your family, stuff like that.
100%. That's all I got for that one, fellas. If you if you guys want to move into um the most important person in our life, or Zach and I can maybe talk about a significant person or a specific person in our lives, and then how that has benefited us in recent memory. And then we can get into Luke's relationship with the lack of a significant other. That sounds
Shout
really
out
bad, but you
Madeline.
know what I mean.
Shout out
Um,
Madeline.
yeah, this is a topic from Madeline. So shout out, special, our only uh special guest of the podcast so far. So she has
Yeah,
that title.
thanks for calling me out. Really appreciate it.
Um,
Can't wait for her
so
to listen to this.
Zach, I'll just be direct with the question. You're in a fairly new relationship compared to your lifetime. How how has that changed just like you as a person that you never would have thought of, that it would have changed you in that way?
I'm more selfless. So I
Hmm.
feel like before before I mean, I'm still pretty like a selfish person, like in the terms of like I put myself first a lot and do what I like to do. And if I don't want to do something, I'm probably not going to do it. But being in this relationship, I think it really opened my eyes because I have someone who is on the same page as me and, inspires me to do better. And we want like the best for each other. It's made me more selfless to think of her more and not just think of myself. So I don't always just consider my point of view or what I want to do. It's always, what is she like too? Would this be something that she would enjoy? And I think that's something that I didn't have in my prior relationships because I mean I was just young and stupid. But now, I mean, it takes two to tango, and one person pulling all the weight in a relationship is not going to make it work. And you can't, even how much you want it to work, one person isn't going to do the job. So if both of you are on the same page and both of you are open and able to consider different perspectives, I think that's a good recipe for success. And I think that's something that has one of the bigger things that has changed in me is just considering other opinions and other perspectives because I think I'm more mature than I once was and I'm just growing and um, just learning more about myself and what I want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Um, yeah, it's kind of like I you didn't me put you on the spot, Zach. Obviously, there's so many, dynamics to both of our relationships in the best ways. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint one and go after. But the big, umbrella of it, that it feels genuinely amazing to share your life with someone. Like that's the most like it's in just sharing it, your life, whether it's the good, the bads, the highs and lows, in betweens. It feels way better to share that with someone who you deem is worth sharing it with. And I think that second part is the hardest, is to not it's not yeah, it's just hard to really tell yourself when you're meeting people when you're young, like in Luke's situation, you're meeting a bunch of people. How do you like kind of decide if this person's really worth it? And I don't really know if I have that answer because it is such an internal feeling that it's hard to describe of like, oh no, this person completes my life, like that's the easiest way for me to put it. Um, and yeah, that just feels insurmountably better than living your life without sharing it with someone, because you can't have you can't have your best friend do with you through all of the things, I'm sorry, you're like your best friend that's not your significant other, right? No matter the gender of that person. Um but when you have that person who plays both roles, who is your intimate, someone you love because of, what they provide in the relationship, and they also have that dynamic of being your best friend and someone that you feel you want to share everything with, um, that's when you know it's truly special. That's when you know it's truly worth sharing your life with and worth putting the energy towards the relationship. Um, and I can't, there is no formula, right, to find that. Besides, I would just recommend, you know, people just like continually be the person that you would want to date or that you would want in your life. How would you want your significant other to live? That's the way you should be living. Um, and that's, and a lot of people, myself included at one time, I wasn't living the life that I wanted my significant other to live, right? I wanted them to do all of these things that I deemed were necessary for them to be my girlfriend, but I wasn't doing it. So that's not how it's going to match, or what I've realized. You have to fulfill all those things that you deem are necessary, that you want to someone to live by yourself internally. And then that's when you're truly ready, I think, for someone to match that energy, or match that love. And there is an aspect of, you now want to make yourself better for you, but also make yourself better for your significant other, so they wake up and they're proud of being in a relationship with you. That's a dynamic that I've never truly had. You don't really have when you're a single person. But when you have that special person, someone in your life that you're sharing your life with, man, it's like, wait, it's just not about me anymore. It's about like me and my significant other as like a team. If I'm working on myself and I'm making myself a better person, our team is better. And then we're able to handle what life throws at us way better, because I'm working on myself. It's like Zach and Madeline gave the analogy of, you know, cleaning your side of the street. Taylor Swift also made that analogy in one of her songs. But yeah, it's like cleaning your side of the street. Um, and so therefore you guys can drive together. And so, yeah, Zach, do you have anything to add? That we're going to kind of get into Luke's. I just want to ask, we can finish off with Luke's dynamic of, significant others in his life right now.
I think honestly, it's relationships are so complicated and so just there's so many layers to relationships. And I think when you're gonna think about something you said made me think about when you do have someone that is genuine and then you want to share your life with and share everything with. And you did say there's like no formula. And I also agree. I can't say that you should do this or like, there's no formula for this, but just like how do you feel when you're with this person and why is that so much better than when you're alone or not with that person? Because don't get me wrong, I love my alone time and I love uh doing what I want to do and not having any like ties to letting someone know or what have you because I've been doing that for my whole life. But when you do share a space with someone, I'm speaking for myself because I do live with my girlfriend, but she left Thursday and has been gone since. She'll be back like later tonight. And while I did enjoy that time to myself and time alone, it's it's to the point where I can do those things and have my alone time when she's in town and here. So I think about, yeah, like really, I'm enjoying myself right now, but I would enjoy myself more if she was here. So that's for me how I know I really enjoy who I am as a person and who I am when I'm with her. So I think that's something, at least for me, like that's my kind of formula and how I know like I'm really enjoying my time and being a part of this so-called team with her. That's all I'd say about that.
Yeah. And then a great way to look at your situation is, how much does your day-to-day change when you're by yourself versus with your significant other? Like, is a day spent with your significant other completely different to what you would be doing by yourself? and like I don't know. My mind also automatically goes to like, then it might not be right. It might not be a match if you're and obviously you guys can chime in and be like, wait, what about this? What about this? But is it okay to say that, hey, if I'm completely changing up my daily routine when this person is in my life versus when she's not in my life, like could that be, a red flag in lack of a better terms? Um, and so that's just something to think about, right? If you are in a relationship, like just think about that, like are you doing things that you would have, and it's not like trying new things. I'm not saying that, but if her day to day and your day to day are completely different, and so when you are together, it's like a ton of like, compensating, then you might need to have a conversation with yourself and your significant other of like, hey, um, are we do we like to enjoy the same things on a day-to-day basis? Because if you want a long-term relationship, which obviously is what the goal is in any relationship, is to be with each other forever, the reality is that there's going to be a time when you're living together, so like that's something to really think about. But like Zach said, he's like, nothing's changed, besides me being like, by myself and with her. And not that it has to be exactly the same, but I mean, if Zach were to just spend a weekend doing what he wanted to do, and he hasn't done it since he's dated, since he's been dating Madeline, maybe that's something for him to have a conversation with himself. Like, man, like, am I really, am I really with the person I'm supposed to be with right now? So, obviously that's not the case in Zach's relationship with his beautiful and feels good. But yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Luke, why are you single?
Honestly, man, I'm selfish. That's what it is. I mean, I really don't live for a relationship in the present, I would say. Like I'm just so focused on, oh, this is my goals, and I just don't see something working out. Like I want to go to flight school. I'm gonna be gone for a long time. It's just, and Tom, I know you're like in this position of like long term, I mean not long term, but long distance. And there's the struggles of that, but like at the end of the day, when you're open about it, you can figure out things and figure out how to make things work. But yeah, I think my biggest thing, along with like the fear, well, it really is just the fear of those feelings being hurt, uh not being, is that girl gonna get me to where I want to be, but at the same time, how can I get her to where she wants to be? But I don't know, I've honestly been trying to be more open about this with myself and with people that I talk to, and I've really expressed that like I really don't put effort into women just because I don't want to hurt them along. I don't want myself to be hurt at the same time, because how would that person take me just being gone for long periods of time, and just can we both achieve our goals, but at the same time, like what if I'm here and they're just there, and I don't know, that's where it gets sticky with me. But I really am trying, like I'm in a period of like I just want to be alone with these thoughts, but at the same time I'm trying to put myself back out there. I'm just like, okay, maybe I do want to experiment with this a little bit more. And my biggest thing is I try to be too perfect, if you can try to like relate to that. Like I want them to like truly like me, and I want them to, and like if I do go out, like I want to be, oh, I gotta look like this, I gotta present myself this way. And I'm not truly being myself at all times, which you depending on the situation you're in, like with this group of friends, you're like, okay, I act a little bit differently this way, but that's you being you. But yeah, I think that really is like when it comes down to, and like I said, I am trying to resolve this in my head and express these emotions with these other people. And at the end of the day too, I really do, it really is all in my head where I I think about, I think this person's just going to come to me, and I'm just going to put zero effort into it and it's just going to happen. No, that's not how it works. And that's what I've really been like having a hard time with, because like, oh, I want that person to come at the right time, at the right place. Like that's just not how it goes, man. Like
Mhm.
it, it'll be that person will be there, but like you have to actually put the effort into it and like go after that. And that too is going into these places with the right mindset, is trying to be on that frequency of opening your heart and yeah, just it's a lot, man.
It
There's so many factors that and that's where it just gets stuck in my head, and like this, just me releasing this is like huge because, like I said, like I've just been trying to like work on it and just kind of think through this, but because like I'm not gonna lie, like I've been feeling like a little alone for like the last like little bit, but we're uh we're trying, and that's my biggest thing is too is trying different things and actually going out with good intentions and yeah.
Zach,
well,
you go
it's gonna
first.
happen. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen when it's supposed to happen. So I don't think there needs to be I'm not saying there is, but a sort of pressure to get into a relationship or open up your heart. And there is no right or wrong time when it comes to a
mhm.
relationship. And a few other things I was thinking about is there doesn't need to be there doesn't oh what did I say? Oh, you don't have to you shouldn't have to change who you are for someone else
Correct.
because that person is going to accept you for who you are and they're going to like
Absolutely.
you for who you are no matter what. So I do agree there's certain friends when you go out like you're a different person than maybe you would be with a few other friends. Um that's a thing, but I think when it comes to a relationship and a girl it will accept who you are no matter the circumstances. And I would
They'll accept all
say
sides of you.
yeah, I would say not to change for a person. Like don't change who you are
Correct.
truly inside. Um, yeah, and you can't force it. And I will say it's very cliche when people do say like oh when you know. But I think that is a real thing. And you might not be open and willing right now, but I will say just like keep trying to be open because there is like the flight school and whatever else you have like coming up and you don't want to get hurt, you don't want to hurt someone else. Those are all really valuable and important things, but also don't shut yourself out for something that could be, you know, beautiful and could last and improve your life in the same way. So keep trying to be open and don't shut it out, but also don't force it. So it's there's a lot of moving parts to it, but go to
Yeah, man. Like if I could put it into a reference, like I love the way you said that. Like I've honestly just like my door's just been shut for like quite a long time, and right now we're taking baby steps. Like I'm creeping it open a little bit, so we'll see where it goes from there. But no, like it's actually like really changed. Like when I try to tell myself, like, okay, let me put myself on a little bit different frequency, and like let's go back to the reference of the door. Like as I've opened up that door just a little bit, like I've honestly noticed like little bit different things have like happened like with my different interactions with like certain people. It's just it honestly has been like really nice, and like and that's the thing too. And like I've been learning like how Zach you said like just being like sharing not just like your thoughts, but you're sharing someone else's thoughts as well. And you have to consider what they're thinking and how they feel. And it honestly has opened up my mind to that openness and that selflessness. And it has been nice. It's been great.
Yeah, and
I
we
have one
can.
more thing.
No, no,
One
go.
more thing.
Yeah,
It's just it doesn't have to also be a relationship that you're gonna get
Correct.
into with a particular person. Even if it's just a really good friend that you enjoy go get some ice cream with or just go take a walk and you're having good conversations like that's something too that you could potentially shut out if your door isn't open where it's supposed to be because you could just be like well I have like I'm going to flight school I have all these things coming up I don't want to get involved with that but like a couple months with someone just being like really good friends that's better than not than being alone and going to drink with
Mhm.
just your buddies and stuff like that so just different things to think about and consider.
Oh no, absolutely, and that's that's where I've been, man. Like It's been a great journey though, but this is just part of it. And that's the best part about life is when you do realize that. And this is just one of those learning curves that we're going around right now. And uh, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for all my friends in my life, the people that are in my life, my family, you guys. So that's step one for me. And like,
100%.
yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna end the topic on this. It's that you don't. I believe you don't really want the situation to be quote perfect. Like
Mhm.
you actually want there to be um, some hardships, maybe some inconveniences in your relationship, because that's. I don't mean that into like the
You
reality
don't
is
wish
that
for it.
you're not, yeah, exactly. You don't wish for it, but don't get so intimidated by that because
Hmm.
those are going to test your relationship in the best way. Like
And that's
that's
the only way you grow. That's
a
the only way you grow.
100%. If you're constantly trying to chase a dynamic, I'm going to be biased. Dynamic of like location and career and finance, all these things. If you're constantly trying to chase that, you're not going to develop substance in your relationship. You're not going to develop depth. You're not going to develop security within each other. Like, and the reality is that the universe is going to test you whether you look for it or not. But just don't cancel out all of these people in your life because of the situation doesn't line up to this imaginary situation of being in a relationship. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously speaking from someone who's in that right now, you know what I mean. They're not the most convenient or by the paper relationship. No one's in that, for the most part. But you look at other people's situations, be like, oh, that they have a way more of a dynamic than this person or this relationship due to whatever the factors are. So yeah, just never steer away from imperfectness because at the end of the day, that's the beauty of a relationship is getting through inconveniences, getting through changes of each person's individual lives together to be there for one another. Like that's the beauty of it.
Mhm. Yeah, that and just yeah, that's the beautiful thing is all these people are all different and they're gonna have different backgrounds and just you get to learn about their experiences and all these things. And yeah, like Zach, like what you said, like just because I have like all of these things coming up, like I think it's big ooh. I think it's been my biggest fear is when I do want to get in a relationship, I do want it to be long term. I want them to be there, but at the same time, like I don't know because like I just get all these stigmas of I hear all these other perspectives of all these other people in relationships, blah blah blah, like all, and it's just I think I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago. Is just writing down what you believe in and really just sticking to that. And there's that, and then there's yeah, just got to start testing out. Just if it's short term and it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. As long as like that person was just feeding me and not drowning me, then I can't ask for any more, and I'll be grateful for it.
Fellas, that's all I've got for today's. Zach, you got anything to add? Anything to add, Luke?
I'm good here.
I can share a quote to end it.
Let's do
Not
it.
really a quote, just a thought. So a limit is set to your days, which if you use them not for your enlightenment, will depart, as you yourself will, and return no more. A limit is set to your days, which if you use them not for your enlightenment, so if you use them not to get better and gain insight, be introspective, they will depart as you yourself will, because we're going to die, and return no more. So know yourself.
I love it.
Gang.